Okay, guys, so we just got done talking about the logic of setting up these fee schedules and how we're thinking about it in our mind while we're going and setting these fee schedules up, how our company actually operates when we set these fee schedules up, the thought process, how our rate schedules are actually set up in general. Okay, so with that being said, we're going to now try to set one of those rate schedules up, and we're going to go ahead and do it within BillQuick, and we're going to keep that logic in mind when we do it. If you didn't look at those videos and didn't see those videos, please make sure that you visit those videos. All links will be in the description below on setting up activity codes, expense codes, as well as the link to the previous conversation about the logic of fee schedules. Maybe even one up the top with the flashcards. So we're going to go ahead and inside of BillQuick, we're going to exit our expense log screen, exit our expense code screen, and we're going to get into the fee schedule screen. So under View, we're going to go to number 6, and it's called Service Fee Schedules. It's going to ask us to do the wizard. We're going to say no to this, as always. And the first thing it's going to prompt us is for a schedule ID. Now, what I always do is there's always going to be different rates for different projects. So how do I kind of like think of the way to create these rates and create these projects, right? And really what I tell people is it's almost like, you can think of it like this. Every year we have a pretty standard rate schedule we try to use. So we have something like 2017-SR for standard rates. This would be like a year-specific fee schedule. And we try to use this as much as we can, but from project to project there might be a different discrepancy where we actually use a different fee schedule, different rates because of this particular project. So when it comes to project specific, I like to normally do like P dash the project number. So for example, I don't know, 17-001 or 17-001, depending on how you guys do it, or 17.001 or whatever. And this would be a project-specific fee schedule. Okay? Then we have our client-specific fee schedule. Maybe you guys, had an agreement with the customer that for the projects all for 2017 that you guys are going to create this one schedule that you guys can use over and over and over again. Well, it would be nice if you could do something like C-ABC Company 17, right? And this would be a client-specific schedule. Now, then we have what they call our current rate schedule, right? One that we're always using currently to make it easy, right? So this would be great if we used it and we needed to keep it for previous years, right? But if we need to get a project going up nice and quick, we always need to know what our current rates are. And so what I like to do for that particular schedule is I like to do 000-CR for current rate schedule. And these are basically the different types of schedules that you potentially could come up with. And there might be a couple more. But in general, now if you look at this, and if we look at it from an alphanumeric standpoint, and I look at a list of these schedules, I will see the 000 current rate schedule at the top of the list because it starts with 000. I'll see all my year-specific schedules together. Then I'll see all my project-specific schedules together. And then I'll see all my client-specific. Actually, I'll see client before project because it starts with a C. But either way, they'll all be grouped together when you're looking through a list, which makes it really nice and really handy when you're trying to assign schedules to a project. Okay? So let's go ahead and start doing that. So we're going to create our 0000-current rate schedule, and we're going to call this current rate schedule for the description. And we're going to say OK. Now I'm not going to show you what the based on is yet, but it is a very handy feature, and we will come right back to it. So we'll hit the OK button, and you're going to see that we've now created a blank schedule. Okay? And in this schedule, we're going to go ahead and we're going to design this schedule. Now, I want you to forget for a second. Now, I'm going to see if I can even turn these off. Can I turn these off temporarily? Yeah, okay, cool. So I want you to forget that the cost rate and the bill rate exists for a second. So I just turned those fields off so you can forget that. And we have basically 4 columns here, right? We got employee, employee group, an activity, or an activity group, okay? So imagine there's a fat black line right down the middle here, and that we cannot pick more than one on each side of this black line. So I either need to pick employee or employee group, or I need to pick activity or activity group. I can't pick both, okay? So in our example that we gave before with the class of employees, and the employee is a type of person, right? I would simply come in here and say, I don't have a class, right? Well, really what that class is it's a group of employees. That's what it is. It's a group of employees. Okay? Now, remember, it could also be vendors too. We kind of treat them the same in BillQuick, right? So, you could have an employee or a vendor in BillQuick, and they're treated the same. They both can technically enter in time. You can give a license to either one of them, and they can both put in time. So, what I like to do is, if you look here, I have no employee group besides all employees or all vendors. Now that doesn't help me out because I don't want that. I want like engineer 1 or engineer 2 or principal, right? So what I can do is I can click on this add new button. It'll bring me into the employee group screen. It'll ask me for an employee group ID, and this is very important while you should create how you create these IDs. And the way I tell you to do it is always the reason why you're creating the group, and then within that reason what it's for. Okay? So in this case, I'm creating the group for classes, class of employees. And this is also an employee group. Now remember, it's very important because employee groups and vendor groups in the background are technically stored in the same table. So therefore, they cannot have the same IDs. So the way that I distinguish the difference is I do class E for employee dash whatever the heck it's for. So in this case, let's say principal, okay? And I will say class, and I'll make it all nice and pretty now, principal, okay? And I'll do the same thing here, new group again, and I'll say class E dash ENG 01, class engineer level 1, right? Hit OK, and I'll do it again, new, class E engineer level 2, class engineer level 2. Okay, so we got our classes in there. We got all 3 of our groups here. Now class principal, class engineer level 2. And now we can start assigning these employees to the groups. Now be very careful here. Remember, an employee is a type of person. It's a type of class, not more than one type, right? So I might create a group later on for blonde-haired people, black-haired people, brown-haired people, etc. for HR purposes, and I can put Bob in that black-haired people group and put Bob in the class engineer 2 group because he can go in multiple groups in BillQuick. It's allowed. But for the purpose of rates, it's not allowed. Because how would I know, with the logic that we put in place, if Bob does any kind of work because he's typed as engineer 1, oh wait, he's also typed as engineer 2. Oh, which rate do we use? I don't know, right? So that's also the reason why I tell you when you create your groups that you always create it reason within reason. That way you know that an employee can never be in more than one group for the same reason. Now, if I did another group called like hair color or something like black, right? And I did hair color and black, and I put Bob in this group by clicking the pushover button here, highlighting Bob and click the pushover, and I said he's also an engineer 1. That's okay because that's a whole different reason. It's for hair color, right? And I'm not going to use the hair color groups excuse me, on our fee schedules. So it won't matter. We won't have a confliction, right? Even though he's in 2 different groups, we will not have a confliction. I simply created the hair color group for reporting later on. Because I want to know how many black-haired people we have, how many brown-haired people we have, and how many blonde-haired people we have in our company. Simply for a reporting later on. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and delete this group. And we're going to leave Bob in the Engineer 1 group, which he's in. And we're going to go back to that service fee schedule screen. And we're going to notice that we have all of our groups now. So now I can come in and say, hey, if Engineer Level 1 does, well, I don't care what activity he does. I don't care what he does, right? Because they're an Engineer Level 1, whoever's in that group, if they do any work, it's a certain rate. So I'm going to say, I don't care what activity, but I can use activity group. And I have an activity group of all. Okay? And I can come back in and add the bill rate and cost rate. And I can say they're going to bill out at $85 an hour. Now, remember what I said before, how BillQuick determines a rate with bill rates, right? If it's 0, it's going to act like it never existed, and it's going to go through the process. Now, this is bill rate and cost rate are independent of each other, and they act the same way. So I would want to put a 0 in this cost rate, because I could have 4 different employees that are Engineer Level 1s. They don't all necessarily get paid the same. So I wanted to skip this cost rate. I wanted to skip the cost rate from the activity screen, and I wanted to go all the way down to the employee screen and pick it up there, because that's where I put it for each individual employee. Understand? Alright, so we skip on through this, and boom, it's done. Now for invoicing purposes, this is very important. Now this will do all the rates correctly, everything would be good, but it would not look good on an invoice. It would look good in the sense that you have the correct rates for everything, but it would not look pretty. So we want to make this look pretty on our invoice in case we go to bill by class and show this on hourly invoices by class. So what we need to do is we need to go to that handy field chooser that we talked about before, right over here, and click on it and turn on the term classification. Now, this is only available in BillQuick Pro and above. If you are using BillQuick Basic, I highly recommend you set up your fee schedules prior to you actually going ahead and licensing your program when it's in enterprise mode, so that way you can build your fee schedules with the classification, and then when you go back down to basic, yeah, it's locked out, but you have already built your fee schedules accordingly. Okay? So let's go ahead and we're going to add our classification here. And this classification is going to be the pretty name we want to give this line entry, this rule. And we're going to call this Engineer Level 1. And we're going to click on another line just to make sure it's saved, because remember, we don't have a save button up top. So what that means is we must leave that row in order for it to save. We saw that both in the activity screen and the expense screen. Okay? So with that being said, we can continue with the rest of our groups, right? We can do Engineer Level 2. If they work on anything, they're going to bill out $100 an hour. Cost rate of 0 because I want to pull from the employee screen. And Engineer Level 2. And last but not least, I want to grab my principals. And if they work on anything, I want to go ahead and bill them at $150 an hour at the cost rate of 0. And I want to call them principals. And there we go. We have now created our fee schedule, and we can create other ones that are very project specific and just simply change the bill rates very quick and very easily. I'll show you how to do that now. We click on the new button up here. We type project specific 17001 and project 17001. And remember I told you I was going to come back to that based on function? Well, I can say based on my current rate schedule, and it will simply copy that schedule, and all I have to do is go down here and say, okay, principals are 200, that's I don't know, 125, and that one's 95, and I'm done. And then when I create this project 17001, I will need to make sure I assign this service fee schedule to it. So With that being said, this concludes on how to create service fee schedules and how that you would go about doing it based upon class. Make sure you smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, and until next video.